Hey everybody, welcome back to the BRS. I'm Mark. It's going to be Shabbat in a few hours down here in Australia, and it's really exciting times. I mean, you only have to look at the television, Facebook, the news, what's going on around the world. There's plagues, it's over 1 million now, is it, from the corona? Like, it's just all happening, isn't it? Everything that's listed in Matthew 24 is happening. Yeshua could come back this year. Are you ready? Do you think his bride is ready? Are you ready? Do you feel your behavior? That was the question last episode. Do you feel your behavior is clean? Are you happy with how clean you are? Because clean, perfect, set apart, righteous, all these words is what we have to become, you know? And so Yahusha, I think that's the scripture we're going to go into today. Yahusha will finish the work that he started in you, in I. And we don't have to worry about one another because we're all in Yahusha's hand. He is going to finish the work that he started. So today I want to talk about ethnicity, among other things, because this chapter is very interesting what Moses starts saying to Yisrael. Remember, he's on not his deathbed, but he's getting really old and he knows he's about to die, and you know, he wants to put all this information into Yisrael so that he can die knowing that he did his job properly, that they'll have no excuse. They've been told. Their parents were told and they blew it, and now they've been told and it's up to them to do it. So let's go into the text today and let's see where we go. We've got some wonderful articles to tie into this perfectly. As always, Yahusha is talking to his bride through the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. He wants us to know this. And I hope you're enjoying these scriptures too, guys. If you're reading some things and it feels like it's been changed completely, it has been. Yahusha said to me, change it, reword it, keep the essence, keep the truth, keep everything I've put in there, but make it 21st century. So I'm breaking all the rules. Whenever something comes up I don't understand, or a word that sounds too complicated, I do often think of it as though my children were reading it, but I also look at it from the perspective of somebody who hasn't grown up in Judaism or Christianity, someone who hasn't read the scriptures before ever. They've never heard the word sin, righteousness. They don't know any of those doctrines or concepts, and they come across all this stuff. I want it to read as though he was in the room with us today and talking real. If you're in America, talking just real, American, Australian, whatever country you're in, speaking to you, because that's how he speaks. So I hope you're enjoying it. And if you've got any suggestions for any scriptures that you feel like, oh, this would be a great way to word this, shoot me a message and I'll probably put it in there, because I love, you know, this is not my scriptures, you know. It's just the task I've been given right now. I'm loving it. So let's go. Ethnicity. Moses says, Yisrael, listen to me. There's that listen again. Listen and obey. This listen and obey concept is right through Deuteronomy. It's not the Shema. It's not just, you know, to be recited 3 times a day. It's not yours, Jews. It's not yours. It's Yahusha's. Yahusha's word. He puts it wherever he wants. It's all of ours. We can all have it. Listen. Listen. Yisrael, listen to me. Listen and obey is a very forceful words to get everyone's attention. You will soon cross the Jordan River and go into the land to force out the nations that live there. Don't forget, they're more powerful than you are. And the walls around the cities look like they reach to the sky. It's not some primitive people in tents here, gypsies and Bedouins. No, we're going against civilization, big cities, metropolitan civilization, very advanced, technologically advanced. So the walls of the cities look like they reach to the sky. Some of these nations are even descendants of the Anakim, and you know just how tall and strong they are. In fact, you've heard that no one can defeat them in battle. But Yahuwah your Elohim has promised to go ahead of you like a raging fire, burning everything in his path. He goes before us and follows behind us like a raging fire, preparing the way for us so that we don't even, what's that scripture? Might be Psalms. or Malachi, so that we don't even stub our toe on a rock. None of our hairs will be singed. You know, the fire will come left and right. People will fall left and right, everything. He goes ahead of us, raging like a burning fire, everything in his path. So when you attack your enemies, it will be easy for you to destroy them and take their land. And after Yahuwah helps you wipe out these nations and conquer their land, don't go thinking that he did it because you're so wonderful and upright and such good people. Good? Ha! You're all stubborn as hell, stiff-necked and rebellious. No, no, no. Yahuwah is going to help you not because you're all so good, but because the nations that live there are so evil. So it's not helping them because they're so wonderful. It's because the nations are so evil. And because he wants to keep the promise that he made to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Moses is talking a lot about this promise, honoring this promise that he made with Abraham. It's a big deal. I didn't realize at the time how, well, I did. I realized when we went through it with Abraham that he really got Yahushua's attention and was his friend and passed the test and even gave up his only son. But hundreds and hundreds of years later, even after Yahushua wants to destroy all these bloody Israelites, he's still honoring this covenant, blood covenant with Abraham. So he's faithful and true. And we often think, oh, we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting. Look at this promise here. It's been over 600 years, I think. And they're still not in the land yet. So Yahushua's timing is very different to our timing. What are we talking about? Yeah, he's honouring this covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. As far as you lot are concerned, don't ever forget how you keep rebelling and making Yahuwah angry. Just like your folks did the whole time they were in the desert. Bitching, whinging, and complaining, and hating on Yahuwah, as well as my brother and I, from the day they left Egypt. And you're all following suit today. You're all following suit. The entire point is that Yahushua will be the victor in this war. He will be victorious in this war against the Canaanites. Yisrael is only his agent, like a human proxy in the victory. This victory is about Yahushua's victory, not Yisrael. They're just following orders. Remember, Yisrael's destination was no secret to the people of the Middle East. Their route was a bit up in the air, but Yisrael's stated destination, Canaan, was always known. It was always known. They would have been talking about it for hundreds of years in Egypt, ever since Jacob took them in there. And Joseph would have talked about it. You know, Yahushua said that he will bring them in and one day I will lead you all out. So this promise of, and particularly when they went into slavery and the Egyptians took them slaves, the Pharaoh, the horrible Pharaoh rose up, that hated on them, they would have been talking, and this hope, this expectation of deliverance, kind of like us, living in a system of slavery and bondage and putting up with people. The only thing we've got to look forward to is our deliverance. I mean, we've got our deliverance, a portion of it, and we're working it and exercising it. But I mean the end, when he comes back and takes us out of this vessel slavery altogether, you know. So my point for saying this is that the surrounding nations and everybody in the Middle East would have known that these people think they're coming back here. They think this is their land. Even though it wasn't their land, even when Abraham had it. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were traveling around. The only thing they had was a promise. They didn't own the land. And these people think they're going to come back and take our land. It wasn't even theirs to start with. But the Creator who made the land can state whatever he wants and promise it to whoever he wants. Just like we dealt with a few episodes ago, or was it last season, when even Lot, the descendants of Lot, were given their land. And who was the other one? The descendants of Esau, Edom, were given their land. And Yahushua's even honouring that, and they're pagans. You know, they're polytheistic, they're considered the nations, but Yahushua's still honouring the covenant with Abraham and looking after Abraham's family, even those distant ones that he loves. And Yisrael wasn't allowed to go near those lands because they're not yours, not for you. So, the point was, 𝔹𝕖𝕙𝕒𝕧𝕚𝕚 destination was no secret to the people of the Middle East. Their route was up in the air a bit, but 𝔹𝕖𝕙𝕒𝕧𝕚𝕚's stated destination of Canaan was always known. So you can be sure that the great kings of the various Canaanite territories had prepared in earnest for the coming invasion. Among those who 𝔹𝕖𝕙 will take on are the Anakites. These are the legendarily big, tall and ferocious nation of warriors. In fact, the phrase, "who can stand up to the children of Anak," was a common saying among the Middle Easterners. So they're all freaked out about these giants, Nephos. But 𝔹𝕖𝕙 is not to be concerned because Yahushua is a consuming fire. And no one, not even the fearsome descendants of Anak, can stand against him. Yahushua says that 𝔹𝕖𝕙 has never held any special or inherent virtue that caused him to want to do all these wonderful things for them. So it's obvious that as time goes on, it's been 40 years, the older generations died off, it's obvious that these people are getting a bit of a big head, a bit of a stigma, or they're getting a bit arrogant. They think they're the chosen people, you know, and they are, but they're thinking it's because of them. And that's just human nature. We all do that so easily. Things happen and we have to constantly remind ourselves, oh, that's not because of me. Yahushua. Anything good comes from Yahushua. So they're starting to feel a bit up themselves, I think. So Moses is telling them, 𝔹𝕖𝕙 has never held any special or inherent virtue that caused him to want to do all these wonderful things for them. 𝔹𝕖𝕙 has not been born with, nor have their deeds earned them any favour with Yahushua. Contrary, actually. In fact, they are inherently no better or worse than anybody else living on planet Earth. So, you know, they're still polytheistic. Look at how much Moses is harping on it. They're still polytheistic. The difference is Yahushua's told them not to. They're just the same as all the other nations. They haven't done anything worth any favour. They're inherently no better or worse than anybody else living on planet Earth. Yahushua is about to use 𝔹𝕖𝕙 as simply a tool to wreak his mighty judgment upon the Canaanite tribes for their wickedness. You got that? It's not because they're so wonderful, it's because Yahushua wants to use them. They are a tool to wreak his mighty judgment upon the Canaanite tribes for their wickedness. Just as he will use the Assyrians, Babylonians, and finally the Romans as his instruments to wreak judgment upon his own people, 𝔹𝕖𝕙, on account of their rebellion. So hundreds of years later, we see that he used other outside nations to do the same thing to 𝔹𝕖𝕙 when they were disobedient. But right now in the story, he's using 𝔹𝕙 to overthrow them. Remember, this was supposed to be an example. These people were supposed to, as it says, wreak Yahushua's mighty judgment, but also be an example of what life with Yahushua in your camp is. They were supposed to be the shining example of this, so that the other nations would be like, oh wow, yeah, we want that too. But alas, it did not happen that way. In reality, only Yahushua possesses true perfection, goodness, and cleanliness. Why are we talking about that? Because we're talking about why is 𝔹𝕖𝕙 so special and why are the other nations so evil. Remember up here, where was it? I've lost it. Anyway, the point is, we're going to talk about what the difference between right and wrong is here. In reality, only Yahushua possesses true perfection, goodness, and cleanliness, which is based on his system of justice and instructions. Goodness and cleanliness is only based on his system of justice and instructions. From a legal, judicial standpoint, I touched on this last week, but from a legal, judicial standpoint, Yahushua's perfection, righteousness, Yahushua's perfection means that he is always in the right. In a court of law, the basic understanding is that when two people contend against one another, one side is essentially judged as in the right and the other side is in the wrong. However, the war that Yahushua was ordering upon Canaan was to establish what was right in order to replace what was wrong, because right and wrong changes from nation to nation, you know, right and wrong. Morality changes from nation to nation. What is acceptable? Who you can shack up with. All the sexuality and paganism and idolatry changes from nation to nation. So what was the point of this? Yahushua is in the right and the world is in the wrong. So the war that Yahushua was ordering upon Canaan was to establish what was right in order to replace what was wrong. That is, that Yisrael, who Yahushua says is being used as his earthly representatives of what is right, is his proxy to overthrow those who are wrong, the Canaanites and their wicked ways. Yahushua is using Yisrael, who is right, to overthrow those who are wrong. And obviously we can see there's a difference between being declared as right by Yahushua and then having to actually behave it. Just like today, we're declared clean and right when we come out of the water, but we're not. We actually have to physically, in our behavior, become right, clean, perfect. Now, it may seem unfair to call one entire people group right and to lump a whole other group of people into the category of wrong, but that is what is happening here. That's what's happening here. And remember, Yahushua is never wrong. The idea of being right also extends to the fact that the promised land is currently inhabited with Canaanites who, in Yahushua's plan, do not belong there. But Yisrael does. So it is with no apologies that Yahushua makes right what is currently wrong, by ejecting the Canaanites out and installing his people in their place. The choosing is all up to Yahushua. And I'm bringing this in because these are what, some of this stuff was just stuff that was being written about Deuteronomy, this particular chapter in Deuteronomy. And I found it fascinating that where we're going, which is into the ethnicity, nation against nation and reign against reign, ethnicity against ethnicity. It's very relevant today. You know, the racism and discrimination going on in the world. But it's also about our belief as well. How do we know? Why are we chosen? Why was Israel chosen? They had no special merit of their own. Why are we chosen? Look back at your life. Why the hell did Yahushua choose you? Look at you. Look at me. Why did he choose me? Paul states how we should look at the mystery. Paul states how we should look at the mystery of our being elected and chosen for deliverance. Why have we been elected and chosen for deliverance? Why can you see what you can see and your next door neighbour can't? Your family can't, your children can't, your parents can't. Why can you suddenly see? And that's all it is really. That's the sad thing about it. You can say this till you're blue in the face to people around you, but they can't, the shackles haven't fallen from their eyes. They can't see. So what is this mystery? Why have we been chosen? Paul says, think about your calling, guys. How many of you are wise in the natural? How many of you are wise? How many of you are mighty or of royal status? But Yahushua has chosen the foolish things of this world to shame the wise. Yes, the weak things to show up the strong. And the base things and the despised Yahushua has chosen that he might baffle and stump those of apparent intellect, power and status, so that no one can boast in themselves before him. Other translations say he uses the base things of this earth to confound the wise. He uses the base, simple, despised things to baffle and stump. Stumps them. They're baffled. They can't, like Yahushua. Isn't this that kid from Nazareth? Isn't that Miriam and Joseph's kid, Yusuf's kid? You know, like what's that about? This guy thinks he's a rabbi. Come on. Yahushua didn't do much work in his hometown because people had it on him that he was a kid. They knew him, didn't believe. And of course his ministry is all based on belief. Your belief has made you well. So that's the mystery, guys. The mystery is, it's a mystery. Why have we been chosen? Because we have. That's all there is to it. We have because we have been, we have because we have. Yahushua chooses weak people and people who are not. He chooses despised people and people who are not. He chooses wise people and people who are not. Election is a mystery, an unsolvable Rubik's Cube. There is no merit involved, apparently no prerequisite that we're aware of. And as a result, we ought to accept our deliverance in the deepest humility, and perhaps with a good helping of fear too. Paul had no idea why Israel was chosen, other than for the sake of the patriarchs, which is still a little bit of a hazy reason. It's still a bit hazy. So, just that's all Moses keeps saying, because he's honouring his covenant, honouring the patriarchs. That's still, what was so special about the patriarchs? We read all about them. They're just normal guys. It's Yahushua's plan. So Paul had no idea why Israel was chosen other than for the sake of the patriarchs, or why Paul himself was chosen, or who will be chosen. But called we are, and chosen will be, if we run our race and overcome. Yahushua chose Israel, and it still remains chosen, and so it will be forever. We can agree or disagree with his choices, but it changes nothing. Now don't forget that when I say Yahushua chose Israel, and it still remains chosen today, Yisrael is the bride, Yahushua's chosen bride. Those who guard the blood covenant of deliverance, those who guard the instructions of Yahushua and hold to his testimony, his witness. That's his bride. The dragon's after them, That I'm not talking about, race or lineage or geography. No, none of that matters today. That's all irrelevant. And we're going to see a scripture coming up later that proves that. So when I say that hasn't changed, Yisrael, if you knew for a fact that you were from the bloodline of 12 tribes of Yisrael, well then you're Yisrael, but you still have to be grafted in anyway, because you have to be grafted into Yahushua, because it's not about lineage anymore. And most of us are from the outside nations. And the outside nations in Israel have been mixed, mashed, muddled up all for the last couple of thousand years. So, 2730 years. So, we all have to be grafted into Yisrael. Long story short, Yisrael is where it's at. Moses had just finished explaining to Yisrael that the only thing that separates them from everybody else is that Yahushua chose them. That's the only thing. Yahushua chose them. And that he didn't choose them because they had some kind of inherent obedience or cleanliness that others didn't, or because they did better works or had achieved some higher spiritual plane because of their own merit. Rather, they were but the fortunate recipients of the Creator's special love and attention for the sake of the promise he made centuries earlier to the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. So despite all the behaviours that have happened for the last 600 years, it says something about Yahushua's character, doesn't it? He said it and he does it. Why didn't he just leave them in the land in the first place? Why did he take them out? Because he wanted all this to happen. All this was supposed to happen for a reason. They were supposed to go into Egypt and be assimilated with the culture. They had to come out again and be trained, All this was meant to happen. Moses keeps talking. At Mount Sinai, your parents made you who were so angry that he was going to destroy you all. It happened during those 40 days and nights that I was on the mountain without anything to eat or drink. Yahuwah had told me to go up there so he could give me the eternal blood covenant of deliverance that he raised up with us again. And this covenant agreement was actually the same 10 commandments, same 10 instructions, marriage vows, he had announced to you when he spoke from the fire on the mountain. Same covenant agreement, same marriage vows, same instructions that he gave on the mountain. He had announced to you when he spoke fire on the mountain. Yahuwah had written them on flat stone tablets. Yahuwah had written them on 2 flat stone tablets with his own hand. But after giving me the 2 stones, he said, Moses, hurry down the mountain to those people you led out of Egypt. Those people. Hurry down the mountain to those people you led out of Egypt. They've already disobeyed me and corrupted themselves with evil by making an idol. I've been watching the Israelites and I've seen how stubborn and rebellious they are. So don't try and stop me. I'm going to wipe them all out. And no one on earth will remember they ever lived. No one will remember they ever lived. Then I will let your descendants become an even bigger and more powerful nation than Yisrael. So Yahushua's had enough. He's going to wipe them all out. Just like he did before the flood, he's had enough. Well, no, he wasn't going to do it globally, but he was going to wipe out these people. After everything he'd done. It had only been about a month or so since they'd left Egypt, and they're already playing the whore. Fire was raging on the mountaintop as I went back down, carrying the 2 stones with the instructions on them. And I saw how quickly Yisrael had disregarded Yahuwah their Elohim and behaved so wickedly. There they all were, celebrating, fornicating and worshipping the golden calf they'd made. So I threw down the 2 stones and smashed them before their eyes. Blood covenant be damned, I was so ropeable. Get stuffed, blood covenant, done. Damn it, get rid of it. Blood covenant be damned, I was so ropeable. They could all get well and truly stuffed as far as I was concerned. So Moses tried to calm Yahusha down, and then when Moses saw it, can't be that bad, Father. Come on, just calm down. And then he went and saw it, and he smashed these covenant stones. The blood covenant had not merely been violated, it was now null and void. It had only just been raised up. It's already been violated and null and void. That is the standard Middle Eastern meaning of smashing the tablets upon which the terms of a covenant were written. It's like taking the contract and ripping it up. Deals off. Deals off. You can all get well and truly stuffed. Smashing the tablets means it's done. And Moses had the right to do it because he was the mediator of it. He's the only one who wanted to go up there and get them. You won't behave yourselves. Done. No more covenant. So that's what it meant. Then Moses goes on to say that as a result of the covenant being cancelled, there really was no longer a need for Yisrael to even exist. Ever think of it like that? If there's no covenant, why does Yisrael need to exist? Yisrael was supposed to be Yahushua's earthly agent for carrying out the blood covenant that would lead to mankind's redemption. But now there was no covenant to be carried out. Therefore, Elohim tells Moses that he is going to destroy Yisrael and form another covenant people, all of them coming from Moses himself. Note something else. Aaron, Moses' brother, who was the high priest, was also going to be destroyed. So even the priestly line would not continue. In Exodus, we didn't see Aaron being singled out for destruction due to his role in the golden calf idolatry, but here we do. Interesting, eh? So Moses has just cancelled the covenant, smashed the stones. Then he was ropeable, off his face. Then I bowed down and spoke to Yahuwah without eating or drinking for 40 days and nights. I was so upset, for your folks had committed such a terrible evil by making that idol, and Yahuwah hated what they'd done. He was so furious that he was going to destroy everyone, and Aaron as well. So I pleaded with Yahuwah for Yisrael's survival, and Aaron's too, as I'd done before, and this time he answered me. It was such a disgusting insult for Yisrael to make that idol in Yahuwah's face, so I threw it into the fire to melt it down. Then I took the lump of gold, ground it into powder, and threw the powder into the stream flowing down the mountain. Remember all this we dealt with back in Exodus? We also dealt with it with the woman who's suspected of adultery. The jealousy cocktail. Remember we dealt with all that? Yisrael also made Yahuwah angry when they were staying at Taberah, at Massa, and at Kibroth Hattaavah. Then at Kadesh Barnea, Yahuwah said, I'm giving you the land, so go ahead and take it. But since Yisrael didn't trust Yahuwah, they rebelled and disobeyed his instruction. In fact, you've rebelled against him for as long as he's known you all. After the making of the golden calf idol, Yahuwah said he was going to destroy you all. So I bowed down before Yahuwah for 40 days and nights, and I pleaded with him, Oh Yahuwah, please don't wipe out your people. You used your great power to rescue them from Egypt and to make them your very own. Yisrael's ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, obeyed you. So think about them and not about Yisrael's stubbornness and evil. Because if you destroy your people, the Egyptians will say, Yahuwah promised to give Yisrael land, but he wasn't powerful enough to keep his promise. In fact, he hated them so much that he took them into the desert and killed them. But you, Almighty Yahuwah, chose the people of Yisrael to be your own special treasured possession. And with your mighty power, you rescued them from Egypt. Moses begins to beg Yahuwah not to do such a thing, to forgive his people and to restore them. And then Yahushua relents. Yahushua relents. And we dealt with that a few seasons ago. Was it just that Yahushua was having a tantrum and Moses had to talk him off the edge? Or was Yahushua drawing out these leadership qualities and these things in Moses? Either way, here we see perhaps the greatest moment of Moses' intercession for Israel in all of Scripture. Even greater than being Yahushua's instrument of miracles and wrath back in Egypt. For the only thing that delivered even the high priest of Israel, let alone Israel itself, was that Moses was Israel's appointed mediator. Only Moses could intercede between Yahushua and mankind. Moses spoke to Yahushua and asked him to remember that these people had already been redeemed and that they were marked to be his special people. Moses asked Yahushua to remember his promise to the patriarchs and to forgive the wickedness of the people, and that it was Yahushua himself who did all the great things for his people, and therefore he would simply be going back on his set-apart promise and showing the rest of the world that he was unable to follow through with his plan. Now, knowing Yahushua, I don't think he was unhinged. I don't think he was mentally unstable. I think he behaved this way, apart from being angry. I think he behaved this way to see how Moses would behave, because he wanted Moses to step up and take responsibility for these people. So Moses fell on his face and pleaded with him. So as we continue reading, not today, but in our next few chapters, as we continue reading, remember that the blood covenant has been cancelled upon Moses' act of smashing the stone tablets to pieces. So this is very interesting, not only talking about what right does Israel have to be in the land, why are they chosen, what's so special about their ethnicity, about their race, and then we've come to, the fact that the blood covenant was only lifted up with Israel, but Moses is letting them know that there's nothing special that you guys have done, So don't think you're all so great and wonderful. They were supposed to be an example, and they weren't, So it also speaks here about the fact that Yahushua is doing everything. Yahushua is the chooser, Yahushua is the deliverer, the redeemer, and Yahushua will finish the work. If his bride follows, if she downright rebels and gets caught up in idolatry by choice, there's a difference between stumbling on making a mistake, falling on your face, feeling dreadful, getting back up and keep going, sorry Father, we keep going. We are evil people in our flesh. We're in our flesh and we're overcoming. There's a difference between that on a training process, getting better and better each day. There's a difference between that and then just saying, no, I want to do this. Not because I stumbled and fell, I attempted, I gave in. No, it's a case of, I think it's okay and I'm going to do it. Tonight, tomorrow, I'm going to do this and this and this and this because I want to, And if anybody ever says anything about it, or if I feel this or I feel that, stuff it. I don't want Yahushua anymore, and you go. There's a difference, He won't put up with it. So let's talk about our journey for a minute. The word journey means asar, to do or make, accomplish, advance, appoint, become, bear, bestow, bring forth, bruise, be busy, commit, deal with, execute, exercise, fashion, feast, fight. So our journey, we've been looking a lot the last year or so about Israel's journey. And many times their journey has been parallel. Their journey parallels our journey. They're going through the wilderness, great pressure and tribulation in the wilderness, fire, test pit, and we're going through the same thing. So let's look at this journey. In Proverbs, trust in Yahushua with all your heart and lean not on your own perception and understanding. Know him in all of your ways and he makes all your paths straight. What did we say earlier in the episode? What did I say about the fire? He goes ahead of them as a raging fire, you know? If you know him in all of your ways, he makes all your paths straight. Which means you've got to listen and do. Listen and do. Any circumstance that comes up, any pressure, anyone coming at you, there's always a way out for Yahushua's people if you go his way. Most of us don't want to go his way, do we? Want to prove our point, say what we want to say, have our opinion, you know, put it up somebody, you know, stick it, you know, like have drama. That's not his way. In Romans 8, Yahushua works every circumstance for the good in those who love him, who are known and called beforehand. Who are known and called beforehand. Why was Israel known and called beforehand? We don't, that's a mystery. Why are we known and called beforehand? It's a mystery. But we know that Yahushua works every circumstance for the good in those who love him, those who are known and called beforehand for his purpose, which is to be transformed into his likeness and behavior, since he's the firstborn of many to come. We are looking to him as the firstborn of creation. There's no other being in creation like him. Cosmic, eternal, immortal, spirit creator, being, and yet flesh and blood man. You know, no one has ever crossed that threshold before. Philemon 1. He who has begun a work in you, will finish and perfect it until the day of Yahushua's return. We can trust in this. Yahushua will finish the work in you that he started. Like I said, unless you blatantly walk out the door and reject him, he knows your heart and he knows if you want him and you want to go on this training plan, path and be the bride and overcome, he'll take you. He will take you on that journey. He'll flog and chastise and discipline you and rebuke you. And you'll feel dreadful if you don't do what he asks and do wrong things. Think the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. Looking at the Hebrew word journey above, we see that it entails many things, just as our life's journey does. The scriptures above tell us that Yahushua knew us beforehand. He also established us beforehand to be transformed to his likeness, and that he has begun a good work in us, which shall continue to be perfected until Yahushua returns. He has begun the good work, not us. Oh, he chose me because I'm good at this and I'm needed in the body. No, anything you hold up to say that I did this and I did that and I've got this and that's all filthy, disgusting rags to Yahushua. He knew you beforehand, who you were, what you were, and he still chose to love you and deliver you and begin a good work in you which shall continue to be perfected. Our journeys have been a bit of a walk in the wilderness where we have seen much of our worldly behaviour and personal idolatries fall away. Yahushua has given us the understanding of how he wants to be with us, his chosen people. The tabernacle and the temple worshippings were not enough to touch the hearts of Israel. And this was all bubby-wubby, tiddlywinks, you know, little kiddie lessons to teach them, to wash their minds, and they wouldn't even come into that, you know. Let alone the fulfillment of the shadows. They wouldn't even obey the bloody shadows. So he came in the flesh to reveal himself. And through his journey on earth, he revealed to us that our bodies are the temple, where he will meet with us through a circumcised heart. He will meet with us through a circumcised heart. That is the blood covenant. That is the essence of the blood covenant, a circumcised heart. So it's the same blood covenant that was lifted up with Abraham. Instead of a circumcised flesh in the nether region, the circumcision is on our hearts. The connection happens there. Because back in Abraham's time, it was all about bloodline and lineage and who was going to be born of who and who was going to be descendants, and it all came through the seed of man. And where does the seed pass through? It passes through the penis into the womb of the woman. So it was circumcised. The seed had to pass through the circumcision, through the blood of the blood covenant. Now the blood of the blood covenant is Yahushua's blood. We're going to touch on that soon. And it's on our hearts, you know. Hearts being where we think and where we feel and where we think and where we behave from, you know. So he meets with us through a circumcised heart. Yahushua has opened a portal door within us where he can sup with us and guide us through our life's journeys. The main journey of our lives today is to listen to our Master and obediently serve him. That's the journey. Listen to his Master, listen to the Master and obey him. Listen to the Master and obediently serve him. All our thoughts must be checked with his words and brought into subjection to Yahushua. This is how you continue your path's journey to draw closer to him with a clean heart. How do you continue your path's journey to draw closer to him with a clean heart? You need to check your thoughts. Check your thoughts before you open your mouth. Is it kind? Is what you're saying kind? If it's not kind, shut up. He will show us how to overcome this world just as he did. Don't forget we're in a war where Satan wants to control our decisions. But people will see our behavior and want to have what we have. People will see our behavior and want to have what we have. We are now Yisrael. We are now the example on this earth. And we're in a set-apart war, just like Israel was. But it's not to take over Canaan. It's not to take over the Promised Land. It's to take over, in his time and his choosing, the hearts of men and women, real estate. We are that living example, like Israel was supposed to be. We are Israel now. So this is why everything's got to be in the 21st century, guys, because who else out there? Or are you going to assemblies? Are you going to congregations and temples and synagogues trying to get believers and trying to get followers, trying to get likes and trying to get hits, trying to sell books and trying to this and trying to that? Or are you going to the highways and byways? Yahushua said, the drug addicts and the whores and the tax collectors and the, you know, down and out will be in the bride before any of you religious vipers, you know. So who are you marketing to? That's why these scriptures are being reworded so that they are relevant to a 21st century world, because guess what? Everybody on this planet is living in the 21st century, you know? So that's why they need to know the truth, because we, Israel, are the example on this earth. And we're in a war for set apart, prized real estate. Satan wants to control our decisions, but people will see our behavior and want to have what we have. Don't just run out and want to convert the world, because Yahushua will lead us, and wait. And to wait on him is a perfecting and cleansing practice. Wait on him. Don't just try and run out there and convert the world. I've got to do the Great Commission. I've got to go and immerse everybody and make followers of all the world. Yeah? Is that what Yahushua meant? Yeah? Is that what you think Yahushua meant? Let's look at the nations. Let's look at the example and what's going on with this ethnicity thing. I'm not going to click on all these pictures. You can click on them yourself if you want to. But it's talking about Matthew 24. Ethnicity rising against ethnicity. Ethnicities. We talked about this not long ago, about the fact that there's a difference between nation against nation, reign against reign, and then ethnicity. Because ethnicity is more of a mindset. It's my mindset against your mindset. It's the very personal hatred that we see going on Facebook, even just between beliefs and doctrines, but also, of course, on the news. Black Lives Matter. We're seeing it everywhere. Australia's come into it. All the Indigenous, the Aboriginals are up in arms. They want to pull down the statue of Captain Cook, who's standing there on the highway with his hand up there looking like Hitler. You know, like they want to they want to tear down the white man, you know. So I'm not getting into all that because it's all nonsense. I recognise what's gone down in history, and I recognise that it's wicked. But what have we been seeing that Yahushua's saying? What did Yahushua decide was going to happen to Canaan? He decides what's going to happen to certain people groups based on their behaviour. Can you honestly look back in history and say anybody on the world has been following Yahushua? Has been the bride? Has been Yisrael? Yisrael were booted out, divorced, scattered into the nations. So whether there's white people against black people against yellow people against pink people, who knows? All this racial prejudice and everything, xenophobia that's going on is just the world. We don't have to get in on it. Do you know how many people are angry? Oh, Israel's in Africa. And Yahushua was black. Yahushua was dark brown. He looked like a, Lebanese person from Israel, an Israelite person. He didn't look like a dark, black African Egyptian type person like Adam and Ḥawwa were, because he was from the line of Shem, not Ham. Ham were the black fellas, mate. Really jet black, like the soil. So how many people are into this race thing? Oh, that's fine for you, Mark. You're a white person. You got white privilege. I don't feel like that. I've had apprentices who are Aboriginal, and some of them are lovely and some of them aren't. Just like white people. Lots of apprentices have had horrible and they're white. So it's not about skin. It's about behaviour. It's about behaviour, guys. Let's look at this ethnicity. Ethnic means racial, race-related, ethnological, genetic, inherited, cultural, national, tribal, ancestral, traditional, folk, autochthonous, a mongrel, a race, mixed, mingled multitude of people. What does Yahushua think about the races, about the lineage, about the genealogies? In Colossians, he said, don't lie to each other, for you've stripped off your old self with its wicked behaviour, having been renewed to exercise and to know Yahushua and become like him. For it no longer matters, it no longer matters, it should say. It no longer matters if you're a Jew or a Gentile, circumcised or not, barbaric, uncivilized, foreigners, slaves or free. Yahushua is all that matters, and he lives in all of us. Race, language, creed, genealogy is irrelevant to Yahushua. As in the times of Noah, he and his family were the only people left on earth from the pure bloodline of Adam. Got that? He and his family were the only people left on earth from the pure bloodline of Adam. All the rest had been intermixed. Bestiality with the Nephilim, the interbreeding with the fallen Malachim, the fallen angels. The human genome, genetic code had been tampered with. Pure bloodline of Adam, which was in the image of Yahushua, had been tampered with. So Noah and his family were the only people left on earth from the pure bloodline of Adam. Not like today, where there's no person living who has the pure bloodline of Adam, because the races have all been mixed and ethnicized. Today, there's no one of pure bloodline. Yahushua was from the bloodline of Adam, an innocent man murdered because of his pure bloodline. But he arose from the dead and ascended into the higher dimension through the portal door, taking his pure blood with him. That's why Yahushua was so pushing this point home through Genesis. Do not go and mix, do not go and find wives from the outside nations. He wanted the 12 tribes of Israel to be pure. And as we know, Yehuda took on the royal the crown, the royal scepter will not depart from Yehuda. And he became the patriarch, the ancestor of King David. And King David, from that line, was Yahusha. So the bloodline was clean. And this pure blood Yahusha took. Yahusha rose from the dead. See, Satan thought he could get Yahusha. Finally, I've got the creator. Even Satan knew that Yahusha was Yahuwah. He's not stupid. He was from the other dimension. He knew that. He knew it was the same being. He didn't believe in no stupid Trinity or duality or anything like that. He knew it was He knew it was the creator. He knew it was Yahuwah in the flesh, Yahusha. He knew that, finally, I can kill him. If I can kill him, then I've killed the creator. I can't kill him if he's too powerful. But now he's flesh and blood. I can kill him. So he sent everything, his whole arsenal at Yahusha. And Yahusha took it all. And he didn't die. Everything. Whipping, beating, his back ripped apart. You've seen all the movies. Nailed him to a tree. Stabbed him in the side. Everything that went on. Crown of thorns into his scalp. All these events by themselves would kill you or I. But Yahusha, didn't kill him. Yahusha, Satan could not kill him. And then Yahusha died when he was ready. He said, this is done. It's finished. Shalom. So Satan thought he killed him, but he arose from the dead. Yahusha tricked him. Yahusha rose from the dead and ascended into the high dimension through the portal door, taking his pure blood with him. It's all about the blood, remember? There's no one on earth from the pure bloodline anymore. But Yahusha is. Just as the blood of Yahusha was sprinkled to cleanse the higher dimension, we too can be sprinkled and cleansed by his almighty powerful blood today. Our hearts will be circumcised and made new, washed in his miraculous healing blood. Only those who accept Yahusha, immerse and repent will receive the blessed set-apart spirit. Now, obviously, it's not all about lineage and perfect blood as far as physical blood. It's also because Yahusha was the creator and because he lived a life of perfection. He was perfect. His behavior, he was always right. So that's the other aspect of his blood too. It wasn't just the fact that the whole line of David was clean, although it was. It's also the fact that Yahusha came in the flesh. Mankind, a man had to take away the evil of this world and buy it back because a man gave it up. A man chose to disobey, so a man had to take it back through obedience. So Yahusha opens a portal for us in our hearts, whereby we can communicate and hear his voice as he leads our lives. Our bodies become his place of dwelling. And this is the most valuable real estate on earth to Yahusha. This is the war. This is the battle that we're being trained for. Not to go out there and convert the world, but to be ready. So that when Yahusha sends somebody to us, because he can trust us, not to necessarily spend 20 years with them or train them or build an assembly or anything like that, but just to give a word and then they bugger off and but just us ready personally. It's not about the converting the world, it's about overcoming to be part of the bride. Don't look at other people, don't look at the ministry, don't look at the commission to go out and convert the world. That's not where your eyes are supposed to be. Your eyes are supposed to be on being perfected yourself. Because then Yahusha will handle the rest. Yahusha knows who he's chosen. But when we go out there, take our mind off ourselves and our training and just worry about everybody else and, converting the world, we're doing Yahusha's job and not our job. Our job is to look at ourselves in the mirror and start exercising and behaving how we're supposed to behave. And Yahusha, if he wants us to talk to anybody, he'll put them in front of us. I mean, you know yourself, if somebody was genuinely, and I mean genuinely, not just there to argue, genuinely interested in Yahusha, down and out, needed the deliverer, of course you'd tell them. I would. course, that never happens, but that doesn't mean it won't. We're readying ourselves so that we are an example. Our bodies become his place of dwelling, and this is the most valuable real estate on earth to Yahushua. Our bodies are the most valuable real estate on earth. He is working and cleansing his people, perfecting them to see his face. Remember last episode? It's all about seeing his face. Perfecting and cleansing his people so that they can see his face. Yahushua wants a clean bride with no worldliness or idolatry. No worldliness or idolatry. Stop looking at whatever you're looking at. Stop partaking of whatever you're partaking of that's worldly and idolatry. This is your personal thing. You know and I know things that we do and we say in our private lives, in our thoughts, in our mind, things that we think about, things that we choose to look at, and do and say and behave and everything. We know what's idolatry and what's worldliness. Yahushua has let us know time and time again, and he hates it. It is very sad to say, but those who don't enter Mashiach and behave his instructions will not be chosen. Will not be chosen. If you don't enter Mashiach, if you don't enter Yahushua and start behaving his instructions, they're a behavior, not a head knowledge, a behavior. You've got to know them and then stand on them when things happen to you, when people talk to you, when calamities come up or pressures come or people are at you, you've got to stand on the behaviors of the instructions. Just as the days of Noach, destruction belongs to those who reject Yahushua. Just as the days of Noach, destruction belongs to those who reject Yahushua. Now, who in your life is interested in this? Facebook? Who's interested? Facebook's just madness. I only go on there now to share these videos and then I run for my life. It's madness. Who's interested in this truth? Who? Look at the world. Look at the racial thing that's going on in the world today. One thing after the other. If they're not upset about the virus and blaming one country over another for the virus, they don't even accept that it's from Yahushua. No, it's from a lab. Well, duh, but Yahushua's allowed it. It's a plague. Over 1 million people. How can it not be a plague? Oh no, it's just, it's just some nation. It's just reality now that there's no repentance, is there? No repentance or recognition. Tsunamis take out things. There's plagues and famines and wars and earthquakes. Oh, it's just Mother Nature. It's just a coincidence. Blind, completely drunk on the worldly systems. But we're awake. That's the bittersweetness of our reality. We are awake. Being awake is very bitter. It's a bitter pill. Forget the scripture about that. Sweet like honey, but it's bitter aftertaste because the truth is amazing to us. But when we wake up and we look around us and we realize the people we love aren't interested, all we can do is love them and behave how Yahushua wants us to behave. Focus on ourselves. Instead of being upset at their state, just love them and be a help and let Yahushua guide you in that. And work on yourself because you're the only person whose behavior you can change. You're the only one who can make it to the wedding. So, love you guys. See you next time.